Hello and welcome to my today's video of the series Lessons of War, in which I explain everything that I have learned during the times from the beginning of the full-scale war when Russia invaded Ukraine, as a Ukrainian living in Ukraine. And today's video is kind of about the topic which is not very obvious. It is prolonging reaction time, which I think was crucial for me and was actually the most important thing that I have, like maybe not most important, but one of the most important things that I have learned during the war. This idea of prolonging reaction times gave a completely different perspective on the life and a completely different ability to live it. And I will try to explain it to you in today's video. So from how I remember the first days of the war, it was... The war, it kind of, especially at the beginning, it's a feeling as if the reality, time and space is really pressed. It becomes really dense and very, very, dense, let's say dense, very real. And I had a very strong feeling that everything that I would do and everything I would think and everything I would say had its consequence. It's the feeling that I had in the first days of the war, and it was becoming weaker and weaker with the current of time, but still I had this experience. So in the first days of war, I had a very strong feeling that I cannot allow myself to express my emotions as they were at that time, because I had a feeling that everything that I say and everything that I do is going to have its influence on someone, which is going to have somehow influence on everybody. So this was first intuitive thing, very instinctive, of not actually reacting immediately, but rather shaping my reaction into something that would help us survive, help us keep our sanity and all that. But at that time, I didn't quite understand what it meant. I just had a feeling that I cannot allow myself to be hysteric, to be panicking, and to anything like this. It was very intuitive. But later, I think it was summer 2022, when I was reading Dune, I saw this quote in this book. I couldn't find the exact quote now, but there was something about that Freemen were teaching themselves to, the characters from the Dune, were teaching themselves to prolong their reaction time as long as they can. And I was like, it kind of resonates and it kind of feels familiar, but at that time my consciousness was not enough to actually understand what it means and how it changes the life and changes the reality. This idea of not reacting immediately. And later, when I was studying to become a yoga teacher, I actually had a chance to understand it in much, much deeper way. And it was through studying the structure of mind and how our reality is defined by it. So basically, we were presented at one of the modules, we were presented with this scheme. I will put it somewhere here. And in this scheme, you can see basically how our reality is formed. It says that something happens to us, and under the influence of our traumas and distortions and our limiting beliefs and society structures and all of these things, we somehow form our understanding of what has happened. This understanding creates certain emotion. This emotion creates certain desire. This desire creates certain action. This action creates certain consequences, or karma, as we say in yoga. Karma is actually not something bad. It's just the consequences of our actions, which very often are bad because we act unconsciously. So this is basically how I understood how the reality is actually formed. And then I also understood why it is important to prolong the reaction time. Because when you react immediately, then your reaction is formed by these subconscious things that we are all carrying inside of us. These are our distortions, our biases, these are our traumas, and everything that we stored in our subconscious during our life, and maybe from previous lives and from our lineage, and everything that is in our subconscious, basically. While if I don't react immediately, I have this chance to take a step back and to actually evaluate the situation, not from the point of view of my trauma, but rather from the point of view of the reality. Like, what do I think reality is like? But also, I can remember that my action will have consequences. And these consequences can be shaped by me in the moment before I did the action. So basically, this prolonged reaction time is required because this way you can actually shape your reality into something that you want it to be. For me, from the point of view of war, well, it's going to sound probably pretty bitter, but I know people who allowed their frustration and their hate and their fear form their reality. And it's not just for Ukrainians, it's actually any people everywhere in the world. In Ukraine it's just more obvious. And that's definitely not the life that you want to live. That is very unfortunate when people allow it to happen. And I kind of understand why it is happening this way, because trauma may be very, very painful, and because our beliefs may be very solid, and because our pain may be huge. I have a lot of it as well. But it's just that if I allow my trauma define my actions, then it will be just the reinforcement of this trauma. And if I allow my pain to define my reality, then it will be just more pain. And this is actually a very fundamental choice which we all make as people, even if we don't realize that we make this choice. Whether we live from the past or from the future. Whether we are ready to allow our emotions and our trauma create our reality, or we choose what reality we want to create despite our trauma. Because it's very possible. It's very possible to not follow the patterns. It's very possible to not follow the trauma response and so on. When you have, well, basically if you made this choice. But actually some additional skills are required too. For example, regulated nervous system and meditative mind, which I was speaking about a little bit in the previous video. There is even this philosophic dispute about whether our consciousness is defined by the reality or our reality is defined by our consciousness. And one of my teachers says that the first variant is for the losers. And I think so too. And this thing is actually applicable to every single theme of the life. So our finances are defined by this. Our relationships are defined by this, special relationships. Relationships are deeply defined by this ability to react or to not react. Because in the relationships we are very extremely vulnerable. So in this sphere we are defined by this even more. So basically this is the key to changing your reality whatsoever. And for me it was like that. When I realized that I can actually shape my reality based on what I want it to be like, not based on how I feel, not based on how many times, in what ways I was hurt. And I made this video because I think this might have been the biggest shift and the most important shift that happened to me. because it gives a lot of strength. And if talking about the pillars, like the way I was speaking about creating this internal core, which includes different pillars, if we are talking about these pillars, this one is extremely important because it gives you access to your biggest strength as a human. And our biggest strength as humans is our will to decide how our life is going to go. And this is the point where we have a chance to express this will, to choose to not be defined by what has happened to us in the past, but to actually be defined by our will, but our intention, but what we want it to be. This gives this understanding that whatever happens to me, I will be able to choose the way I understand it, the way I perceive it, and the way I react to it. I will not be reacting just the way it comes. I will react the way I want, depending on what I want to see as a consequence. And this is a very, very powerful tool. For me, actually, frankly speaking, I think I learned this not because I'm very conscious, but because I'm very stubborn. I was like, what do you mean? Someone hurt me, they traumatized me, and now the trauma that they gave me is going to define my reality? No. I'm going to decide what my reality is going to be like. Or like Russians attacked me and they brought their hate and their anger and their fear to my reality. And what? I will allow it to define my reality? No. I will decide. So it was more or less like this. I'm very, very extremely stubborn person. And that is why I managed to, maintain my sovereignty in this question. So this is basically what I invite you to do as well. To be very stubborn. To be like, you bitch hurt me and now this is supposed to define my reality? No. I will define my reality based on what I want. This is the ending of the video that we are going to have today. The topic was too serious and too fundamental, so I needed to, release it a little bit. By the way, it's time for you to meet the main star of this blog. This is Jaskier. This is his blog, actually. I'm his secretary. So, meet Jaskier. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And see you next time. This is the 3rd video. There are 6 videos to go. So, see you.